Alrighty, welcome everybody to Econ Chat's videos designed to hopefully let you be a little bit more successful in class and on the milestone, but maybe, possibly, even in life. And welcome to video number 7, where we're going to be discussing SSEMI 3. That's the last standard of the microeconomic standards, and of course it deals mainly with business organizations and market structures. And I'm going to try to make it as quick as possible. I know I say that often, but here's the thing. The reason why I'm making this video is because in talking to some people and seeing some of the work, it seems like there's still some confusion. And so really what this video is going to be about is, yes, we're going to go through some of the information, but it's going to try to maybe teach you a way to game the system when it comes to taking tests. And what I mean by that is that, you're given a sheet of paper on the milestone, you're given a sheet of paper when you take the test, and so it doesn't necessarily hurt to be able to know how to sketch down some charts and be able to use them to your advantage, as long as you know what goes in the chart. And so you're going to see that a few different times in future videos, a couple different charts that can help you on these tests. But again, the important thing is you still have to know the information. These charts just kind of help to organize it a little bit better. So that's really what today's going to be about. But anyways, what you're going to do, of course, is always based on the standard. So let's go ahead and show that to you now. So the standard's, again, pretty straightforward, SSEMI 3. And you're going to be explaining the organization and role of business. And then you have to analyze the 4 types of market structures in the U.S. economy. So A is straightforward, comparing and contrasting those 3 forms of business organization: sole proprietorship, partnership, and corporation. So you need to be able to do that, but then this particular standard, it gives you the specific things that you need to know about these 3 types of business organizations. Again, how businesses are organized. You need to be able to know these things according to the standard. You need to understand the number of owners. You need to know what liability is. You need to know what lifespan is, decision making, and taxation is for each of these 3 forms of business organization. And then a little bit later on, we'll get down to B, which is identifying the basic characteristics of a monopoly, an oligopoly, monopolistic competition, and pure or perfect competition. So these are the 4 types of business structures that you're going to need to know. And listen, the thing about business or the market structures is that, really what we're looking at here is the type of competition available within these markets. So how are these markets structured? Remember, the market is what allows us to buy and sell things, because we can't always produce what we want. And so this thing, this place, this unseen force that we call the market, in which buyers and sellers meet in the middle and interact, that market is different depending on the product, right? The market for something such as fast food is completely different than the market for video game systems. And so, you're going to hopefully be able to understand the differences in those markets when we get down to that. The standard's pretty clear in terms of, you have to identify basic characteristics. Which characteristics? Well, they give you this list. So you need to be able to tell about each one of these different markets, how many sellers are in there, what are the barriers to entry, what sort of price controls do they have, and then product differentiation. So we'll get to that one eventually. But first of all, I'd like to start back with A. I'd like to go ahead and get into business organizations, and I'd like to go ahead and start talking about that chart a little bit. So let me go ahead and show it to you here. Now, this chart, I know people are looking at it, and typically when they see a chart like this, it's not very exciting, and for some people, it's just kind of, ugh. That's cool. I understand that. I get that. However, it doesn't hurt. You have, again, a piece of scratch paper on the milestone and on tests. So it doesn't hurt to be able to know these charts and to be able to set them up so that you can have the information there, which, again, you have to learn. But sometimes charts help people keep it all straight and understand what's really happening with the information that's presented in the chart. So for this particular chart, we're going to first of all start by giving it a name. And we're going to be real positive on this name. We're going to just think really good thoughts about this chart, this kind of ugly looking chart. But this is what we're going to call it. Ready? Let's call it the super perfect chart. That's right. We're going to call it the super perfect chart, because if you can remember super perfect chart, you may be able to remember sole proprietorship, partnership, and corporation. So there you go. It's a chart about those 3 things. It's a super perfect chart about sole proprietorship, partnerships, and corporations. Now, not only is this a super perfect chart, but we're also going to get a little fancy with it, and we're going to call it one little lovely dainty table. That's right. I know it's not great, but it's late and I couldn't. All right, so one little lovely dainty table. If you can remember, this is a super perfect chart, but also one little lovely dainty table. Perhaps you'll remember sole proprietorship, partnership, and corporation. But you will also possibly remember things like number of owners, liability, lifespan, decisions, and taxes. So these are the things that you're going to see on this chart. So let me just go through this real quick, like just show you what we're looking at here. And again, types of business organization, how many owners, what type of liability is there, lifespan of the business, who makes the decisions, and types of taxation. So again, super perfect chart, SPC right down there on the left, but then one little lovely dainty table this is. And so that's OLLDT, owners, liability, lifespan, and decisions and taxes. So how many owners? Well, that's pretty straightforward. Sole proprietor, it's sole, it's one. Partnership, typically two or more. And then a corporation, what separates a corporation off, for the most part, is the ability to buy and sell stock. And so in that company. And so for a corporation, there could be millions of owners. There could just be a few thousand. It just depends on how many stockholders there are. Now, liability. We need to make sure we understand what this term liability means, and all that refers to is responsibility for any debts incurred to the business. So, if this is a sole proprietorship or even a partnership, the owners have unlimited liability. That means they are unlimitedly responsible for the debts of that business. If businesses incur a lot of debt due to mismanagement, towards the bad economy, due towards some sort of legal issue, ultimately the owners, the sole proprietor and the owner of a sole proprietorship or the owners of a partnership can be held responsible for those debts. Now, again, you'll notice for a corporation that's different. If you're an owner of stock, they are not going to come after a stockholder for any sort of debts owed by a major corporation. If that was to happen, people really wouldn't buy stock if they thought that, well, I can buy a few $100s worth of Coca-Cola and then later on maybe I'm going to get a check for my share of the $4 billion a company owes for whatever reason. No, that wouldn't make me want to buy it. So a corporation has limited liability. If you own stock, your responsibility is only whatever money you spent on the stock. That's your only liability. Lifespan of the business, of course, means how long is that business going to stay or last if ownership changes. For sole proprietorship and partnership, that tends to be very limited. Most of the time, if a sole proprietor is no longer in business or if one of the partners want to leave a business, oftentimes that business will either close down or go through some sort of massive change. However, in a corporation, ownership changes daily. And so ownership in terms of stockholders, that means that businesses are going to last a lot longer. Many of our corporations, such as Ford, for example, have been along for 100 years, over 100 years. And so those can last for a long time. Now, who makes the decisions? Who is the decision maker? Who is the decider, as good old George W. used to say? Well, a sole proprietorship, of course, it's just that one person is the decider, the owner. The partnership, the partners will share some sort of decision making. But in a corporation, that's done by board of directors. And that's, again, what it sounds like, a board of people that are appointed or elected by stockholders to serve on the board of a corporation and make the major decisions. They're the ones who do that. Now, type of taxation, you'll see it says single, single, double. Type of taxation for owners, sole proprietors, and partnerships. You're going to see just single taxation, which means how many times is the income taxed for that business? Well, for the sole proprietor and for the two partners, they're only going to be taxed once. However, if you'll notice, corporation has a double taxation. And a double taxation means that there is a taxation originally for the corporate. There's a corporate income tax. But then any money received in the form of dividends by corporations, or excuse me, money received in the form of dividends by the owners of the stock is also going to be taxed. So corporation brings in profits, but they're taxed not only on the income level as a corporation, but whatever money their shareholders get also. So that is what we call double taxation there. Now, of course, with all this, it doesn't hurt to also understand what this means, but also see how it relates. So with that, we can come up with some advantages and disadvantages straight off of this chart. There you go. Let's look at this. So you see some advantages for like sole proprietorship. Keep all the profits. Yeah, you're the only owner. You get to make all the decisions, and it's relatively easy to start. Now, I'm not saying that opening a business is easy, nor is running a business easy. But again, compared to the paperwork and the hassle that may be involved in trying to incorporate a business or get together with a partnership, you're making all the decisions. You are the only owner. You're the one to do all that. So that makes it relatively easy to start. Advantages of a partnership, again, somewhat easier to start. It's certainly easier to start than a corporation. But of course, one of the bigger things is when you're bringing on another person, you're going to get specialization. Perhaps in a business, one person may be, for example, in a landscaping business, one person could be mowing the grass, the other person could be hedging the lawn, or doing the hedges. Uh, Specialization could mean that one person is creating a product while the other person is doing the books. But again, when you're bringing on one person, you're also going to have the advantage of having more money to start it up than if it's just you. Corporation, you're going to have even more funds to be able to get if you're selling stock. That's one of the part of reasons why businesses sell stock, is that they can get that extra capital, that extra money. And then again, they have the opportunity to grow larger as a corporation, which may appeal uh, to better workers, and that you're going to give them the opportunity for advancement. There again is that ability for limited liability for the owners, and that you are only responsible for whatever you have. You're not responsible for the debt incurred by the company. And then again, unlimited life. Now check out some of the disadvantages. Disadvantages of sole proprietorship, again, that unlimited liability we talked about. You are responsible, you are on your own there, and you are responsible if you're a sole proprietor. There's a limited life. More than likely, if something happens to you, or if you decide to give up that business will also go bye-bye. Again, it's harder for you to attract that top talent like corporations could, because, you are just a small mom and pop operation, and then you have those limited access to funds because it's just you. Partnerships, same thing. Unlimited liability and limited life, same kind of things work. But again, potential for conflict in a partnership. One partner may not like the other two or three, or just the other one partner. And then you also have to divide up those profits. That's a disadvantage as opposed to a sole proprietorship where you get to keep it all. But when you have a partnership, yeah, you got to share the money. And then with a corporation, you have that double taxation thing that we talked about again for the owners. You can lose control of the company especially if you started and the board of directors, wants to get rid of you, for example. That is possible if the stockholders so desire. And then you're going to have more government issues, greater oversight by the government for that. So again, advantages and disadvantages of a corporation, of a partnership, and of a sole proprietorship. Hope it made sense. All right, now let's throw it on over to the market structures. Whoa, and there it is. That one's even uglier than the other one, but it's okay because we're going to give this one a name too. We're going to remember this bad boy. This chart we are going to call the perfect mom chart. Yeah, the perfect mom chart. All right, and so this one stands for perfect competition, monopolistic competition, oligopoly, and monopoly. So these are the four market structures you have to know. And so let's make sure that we understand what those characteristics are. Remember, they want certain things. So we're going to remember that the perfect mom makes super baked cookie products. The perfect mom makes super baked cookie products. So with super baked cookie products, we're talking about how many sellers are there? What are the barriers to entry? What is the price controls or the control of price? And then what type of products are being made there? Are they different? So the perfect mom making super baked cookie products. Let's look back at this chart again. There it is. You've got perfect competition, monopolistic competition, oligopoly, and monopoly over there on the side. And then up top, we've got the number of sellers. And again, that's what we're looking for in this market. Are there a lot of businesses or just a few? The barriers to entry. How easy is it for a company to get into this market? Is it really simple or is it really hard? How about price controls? What type of controls do businesses in this market have? Can they decide what the price is going to be, or do they have to just kind of go along with what everybody else says? Or can they just set the price themselves? And then products. Are the products being offered by different businesses in this market? Are they very different? Or is each company producing a product that's kind of the same as the other one? So again, we're going to throw all this together. We're going to look at the perfect mom chart, which stands for perfect competition, monopolistic competition, oligopoly, and a monopoly. But we're going to be taking a look at the number of sellers, what are the barriers to entry, or how many barriers to entry, what type of price controls do they have, and are those products different? So, perfect and pure competition, just real quick, one of the best things that you want to think about is a perfect peach, a perfect, delicious peach. So, when I say that, the market in perfect competition is like a good example of that would be agriculture. If you think about the perfect peach, you think about agriculture, what you're talking about are in an agricultural market, whether we're talking about peaches, tomatoes, apples, whatever, you're talking about a number of different sellers. We're talking about many sellers. We're talking about a market that is perfectly competitive. That's why it's called that. And the reason we have so much competition is because there's so many sellers. Now, if we have so many sellers, then that should tell you that it's relatively easy to get into this market. There are low or no barriers to entry. It's not an extreme amount of cost, doesn't take you a whole lot of knowledge or anything else that may prevent you from getting into this market. Now, again, because there's so much competition, you have very little control over the price. You're typically going to take whatever the market price is. Grapes prices are grape prices. Oil prices are oil prices. Gold prices are just kind of gold prices. Individuals can't really increase that price because they can go find a similar product. And that's what differentiation means here. The products are identical. And because of that, because the products are identical, there's so many people selling these identical products. The price control is very nil, meaning that the market price is just going to be what it is. Not one individual firm has that much control over price. Now let's go over to the monopolistic competition. Sounds about the same, but it's not. There are a couple of differences. So monopolistic competition, you have again a number of different sellers though. Both competitions, whenever you see that word competition, just remember it's competition because it's competitive because there are a lot of sellers. Again, if there's a lot of sellers, there's not going to be any barriers to entry or there are going to be very few. Now, product differentiation here. You're going to see there are some differences. So the example I always give people is jeans. If you want to talk about jeans, you can see that there are literally hundreds of different brands of jeans out there, from boutique jeans that we've never even heard of to jeans that everybody's heard of. But those products are different. And because those products are different, they do have some price control. This is why when we see a market like monopolistic competition, because there is a difference in price. Again, that's the difference between perfect competition and monopolistic competition is the differences in the products. They're going to be able to control their price. That's why Versace can sell their jeans for like $1,500 and why Faded Glories cost $29.95. It's because there's a difference there. And so because there's a difference, there's some price control. Let's go to the next one, which is probably the most fun to say, oligopoly. Oligopoly, oligopoly, oligopoly. Oligopoly is just a type of market structure in which there's only a few different sellers. So again, think video game systems here. You have those that dominate the market are things like the Sony PlayStation. You have the Microsoft Xbox. You have maybe the Nintendo, although that's not dominating as much. But again, just two or three, a few different firms dominate this market. Another good example would be credit cards companies. You have Visa, you have MasterCard, you have American Express, and to some extent Discover perhaps or Capital One. But again, the major ones that dominate are just a few. Sodas is another example of an oligopoly. Just about every beverage that you can think of as soda is primarily made from either the Coca-Cola company or the Pepsi company. Cell phone service, if you're talking about Verizon or AT&T or T-Mobile, these are the firms that dominate the market with Sprint. Then you've also got cell phone makers, Apple or Samsung, again, an oligopoly. There are others that make it, but only a few in there actually dominate the market. So when that happens, the products somewhat vary. The products may be identical, may be slightly differentiated as well, though. It just depends what happens. But ultimately, the others, if one firm changes the price, if Coca-Cola was to all of a sudden decide to change their drink to $2, you may see Pepsi follow suit. Now, of course, some competition comes along anyway, but that also helps to explain why you'll see two drink machines, one Pepsi machine, one Coke machine next to each other, and the price is pretty similar. The Xbox One and the PlayStation, when they first came out, again, prices were relatively close, although one was a little bit more expensive than the other. But again, when you look at things like cell phones, again, prices are somewhat similar. Now, let's go to Monopoly, probably the easiest one, the one you know. Number of sellers is one. For example, the game Monopoly, the reason you play the game is to be the last one person. Monopoly, mono. You catch mono, you'll be by yourself. Monopoly, there is just one company there by itself. Obviously, if there's just one company there are going to be a lot of barriers to entry, similar to an oligopoly. Again, monopoly and oligopoly just have a few, so there are a lot of high barriers, cost, technology, things that prevent people from actually breaking in, perhaps even something like a patent when we're talking about monopoly. Now, again, if you only have one product, there's not going to be any differentiation, but if you only have one maker of that product, they're going to have total, complete control over price. And so in a monopoly, again, strong control over price on that one. Very different from a perfect or pure competition on that one. Basically, the complete opposite. So there's the chart, there's the basic explanations. And again, guys, with this type of stuff, you just kind of have to think. Just try to think about what would fit in there if you're talking about the perfect mom chart. And of course, knowing that perfect moms uh, uh, have, gosh, what did I say? Super baked cookie products. Yeah, that was it. All right. Well, there you go. That's that. I hope I didn't confuse you any more than I did. But again, SSEMI 3 just as important as the others, but that is the last standard of microeconomics and just understanding the differences between business organizations and market structures, keeping those things straight. And they actually, when you think about it, if you try it and you read it and you pay attention, you'll notice that they really kind of make a lot of sense. So just try to do that a little bit. But again, if you have any problems, if you have any questions, you know to let me know. And I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that it was somewhat helpful and it didn't mess you up too much. But in either case, it's been a pleasure. Tune in next time and we'll see you then. Take care. Bye.